Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our event tonight. For those of you who might not know me, I am Gavin Merrifield, and I am the General Secretary for Christians in Science, and will be hosting you tonight. This event is a follow-on from an event at the end of last year, where we presented a renewed vision for our organisation. And now at that event, we crammed in quite a lot of information and ideas, and we didn't really leave much space to explore them a bit more or to hear back from you about what you thought about them. So we'll be leaving some space tonight, especially for that. I'm really delighted to say, though, that many of you have been in touch since that event, and also especially in the run up to this event, to express your support and enthusiasm for where we want to go and to share some of your ideas that will help take us there. There are still a few of you that I need to reply to and chat with, but overall the impression I'm getting is that there is quite a swell of support for our work and the importance of CIS for conversations both within and beyond the church around matters of science and faith. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you all already for that, and it's a huge encouragement to see so many of you here again tonight. So hopefully over the course of this event we can inspire you further, challenge you some more, and encourage you to find some specifics for your place in our organisation and in our mission together, as we seek to be a fellowship and to encourage one another and help the church to see science as a valid and valued partner in the work of the kingdom. We'll aim to wrap up by about 8 o'clock, just to give you a bit of a time frame, depending on how our conversations go anyway. But let's begin now with just a few minutes of prayer, remembering who it is that we are serving through all these endeavours. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the joy that we can find in science. We thank you for the privilege of being able to discover new things. We thank you for all that you have made and blessed us with. Help us to be a blessing on all others through our work with Christians in Science. Help us to be able to support and care for one another and to shine like beacons in our churches, our laboratories, and wherever you have placed us. Help us to look for and grasp the opportunities to share our science and our faith. You have given each of us great gifts of time, resources, understanding, character, and belief. Help us to seek your wisdom and heart with how to use these gifts well. We ask that you would open the doors to opportunities in our communities that we can step up to and proclaim your name in. Give us the confidence we need to step out in faith in your timing. Help us to remember that we serve the God who is wiser than human wisdom and stronger than human strength. Help us to remember you are the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, where resources are without limit. Help us to remember that you call us to act and that nothing you call us to will be impossible. Be with us now tonight as we consider further the future that you have for Christians in Science. Amen. Now, I don't want to take up too much of the evening with me doing all the talking again. You should have received most of what I'm about to say in the next few minutes on a link this weekend. If you haven't, the link is about to appear in the chat box, courtesy of our tech man, Matt. But I just wanted to take you through it quickly while I had a bit of your attention. So as a refresher, our vision for CIS is calling us to move forward from being more than just a membership organisation, a special interest group for its own members, to moving towards functioning more as a charity, of which we are already one and have been for a long time, being more of a mission partner, a trainer and equipper of the church in the area of science and Christian belief. There are still a lot of challenges and misunderstandings out there around science and faith, as well as needing to engage with all the new topics and issues that new discoveries in science are always raising. And as part of that particular point, we want to regain our momentum in terms of producing and developing new ideas around science and faith, and to be seen as one of the best places for people to come and engage with them. This will be done a bit by promoting our journal more through our new subject groups and through making our main conferences more research focused. Now, none of this is particularly new. Much of it is already written into our official charitable aims and objectives and articles. And I've been reminded as well in the last week that we have had similar discussions over a longer period of time than we may be comfortable with. Now, what I think is different now, though, is there is a renewed sense of enthusiasm from our members combined with an urgency to act. The need for Christians in science is greater than ever. We are coming out of a global health pandemic where discussions around science and religion were at the forefront of that. There's suspicion around science today in wider society. It's no longer just in the church that seems to be reacting badly against science. Wider society is now picking up kind of echoes of what some in our churches have been saying for a long time, that we have to be suspicious of and worry about science and where it's going, and these kinds of things that are maybe not as helpful for people to be hearing. So my sense is that we really need to get stuck in and be proactive in countering that, but also with helping people to understand and to be free to enjoy science as part of their faith commitment as well. Now, our moment and our opportunity to act is now, I believe. As hopefully you have seen on the link, we are looking for members to get involved in a number of areas. So I'm just going to share my slides with you. Got one slide to share with you, if I can find it. As always with these things. There we go. So the last meeting I was talking about groups and teams that we might want you to join, and that link I sent has a lot of detail on these things. So we were talking about our local groups, which have been a mainstay of Christians in Science for as long as we've been around, but need a bit of re-energizing and revitalization. And we want people to start to do that on a kind of very local level, and not to stress too much about making local groups too grand. And we were more interested in actually having people meet and be with one another. Subject groups I just mentioned earlier. These are new opportunities for people who are interested in particular areas of the science and faith discussion to come together, to share new ideas, to develop them, and to present them to the wider body of Christians in science as well. Teams, there's quite a few teams that we're interested in recruiting people for. You may have skills from your work and from your church life that fit into some of these teams. You may be passionate about some of these areas. And we'd love to have those skills and those passions being used for the benefit of the workings of Christians in Science as well. And one that I've not mentioned before, that I've really been playing on my mind for the last week or so, is a prayer group. And I'm not sure what form this will take, but I'm just throwing it out there. I think prayer needs to be far more central to what we are doing as part of Christians in Science as well. So those categories are discussed more in that link that I sent you. If anyone wants it afterwards as well, you can email me and I'll send it out to you. But we don't want these to be too prescriptive. We want them to develop organically and creatively as well, beyond just our initial thoughts on them. And many of you also have your own ideas about what you want to explore, and we want to encourage you in that. But as an organization, there are some key parts of what we do that we need help with to function well, and which will enable us to do far more than just those basic functions. So you've had those skills, those experiences, those passions, dare I say it, those giftings. We would love to have them being used in the service of CIS. So please get in touch with me if you think you might be interested in any of those areas. Now later we're going to split into two groups for a short while to chat and discuss a bit more. But before we do that, we're also here tonight to hear from God and the Big Bang team, who are represented here tonight by Michael and Abby. As we heard in our last meeting, CIS and God and the Big Bang are looking at ways where we can work more closely with one another, with the direction of travel being with the intention to bring these two groups together more formally to mutually reinforce one another in our shared mission. So Michael and Abby, welcome. Before we jump into the work of God and the Big Bang itself, can each of you just give me a snapshot of who you are?
Abby, do you want to go first with this?
Yeah, of course. Lovely to meet you guys. Yeah, my name is Abby Folkus. So I am the Schools Development Officer for God and the Big Bang, and have been since October, so taking over from Sarah. I have a background in biological science, I've loved science since I was very young, especially biology, and have studied that, and then went on to do climate science at King's College in London. And so, yeah, I've been speaking with God and the Big Bang for nearly 2 years and working with them full time since October, and absolutely love it.
Thank you, Abby.
Michael Harvey. I am a member of the Archbishop's College of Evangelists. About 20 years ago, I started something called Back to Church Sunday, and I'm generally interested in the extension of the kingdom of God in all sorts of different ways. And my first 20 years of working life were in growing businesses. So that's just a little snapshot.
Thank you, Michael. So the obvious first question, I suppose, is what is God and the Big Bang, and how did it begin?
Thanks, Gavin. Well, for those of you who don't know how it began, and a number of you do because you were there at the very beginning. Without Ruth Bansovitz, for example, there is no chance whatsoever of this getting off the ground. And then I see here Andrew Hailstrap and John Bryant and Rhoda Hawkins and Lizzie and Matt Gardner. They all have played a really important role in the early years, the middle years of God and the Big Bang, and without them, we would not be here to get today. And more recently, I'm really, kind of thrilled with the partnership that we've had with Professor John Wood as well, who's been really helping us in terms of really refining what we've been doing. So I'm, super grateful for that. But for those of you who don't know how it started with emeritus scientists around about 12 to 13 years ago, going to the Diocese of Manchester saying that science and faith were compatible. And the Diocese of Manchester basically kind of agreeing. And it was then taken to the General Synod. And there was a debate at the General Synod. And it was overwhelmingly agreed that science and faith were compatible. It was something like 224, 2 abstentions and 2 against. I'm not sure who the 2 against were, but anyway, I think it was fairly overwhelming. And as many of you know, not a lot happens really from a General Synod. However, on this particular occasion, there was a conversation between the then Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Willems, and Bishop Nigel of Diocese of Manchester, which went a bit like this: stop bringing stupid motions to the General Synod if you're not going to do something about it. Now, we all know bishops don't speak like that, but it's my kind of version of that conversation, my version anyway. And so I then, as a non-scientist, can I just apologise for being a non-scientist? I know I've just gone down in your kind of estimation immediately.
Okay.
I then, as a non-scientist, was phoned by the Bishop of Manchester and the Diocesan Director of Education would you demonstrate the compatibility of science and faith? And again, as a non-scientist, I said, yeah, okay, I'll have a go at that. And some 10 years later, we have this thing called God and the Big Bang, which again came from CIS, really. It was the education secretary of CIS in those days who'd done this day called God and the Big Bang at a school in Kent. And I saw it and I thought, oh my goodness, this is so easily replicable. And I asked permission. Could I, was he going to do anything with it? Could I take it and see what we could do with it? And some, I guess, 10, 11 years later, for those of you who've been God and the Big Bang speakers, you may well be surprised in what I'm about to say now, but last 12 months, we were in 100 schools. 100 schools. Those of you at the very beginning know how blooming difficult this was to get off the ground. It was so hard to get off the ground. We were in 100 schools, 6,500 students that we saw last year. And honestly, everybody, it has been one of the greatest apologetics for the Christian faith I have ever seen. Now, I'm not involved in terms of that piece, so I'm trying to kind of just demonstrate to you. I mean, it's unbelievable. And those of you who've sat on a God and the Big Bang question time panel know what I'm saying, because essentially, you know, and Abby will tell you what a day is like in a minute, but it's the children themselves, it's the pupils themselves who, by the end of the day, start asking science faith questions. Science is an absolutely brilliant way of actually kind of reaching this generation with a message of Christ. There's no question whatsoever. But you know, this came from emeritus scientists, everyone. This is where it actually came from, and basically kind of why I'm really interested in trying to actually partner here is to get back to the well from which this sprung from. Gavin.
No, thank you for that, Michael. I'll say if the question sessions at the end with the pupils, they're never short of good questions. There's always something every time that surprises you when you're doing one. I'm speaking as someone who has done a number of schools as well. I hadn't realised it was 100 schools there in the last 12 months, and that's like two a week. That is very impressive. Abby, so we kind of jumped to the end of the day there talking about the panel discussion, but can you tell us what happens? Take us through a day, God and the Big Bang day, when it goes into a school.
Yeah. So we have a team from across the country that come in from a range of different backgrounds, and we go into the school as a team, and essentially we have 2 or 3 different sessions that we run on a rotation, exploring different topics. And as Gavin said, they're really about saying, wow, isn't science amazing? Isn't God's world amazing? And saying, can faith come alongside, and do they work together? So some sessions at secondary level may look at sort of curiosity. You know, why are human beings so curious about the world? Why do we spend so much money on putting on finding things out about the world? And why is someone curious about something and another person curious about something completely different? And that really is slowly, you know, but surely, as Michael said, through big questions and you know, really digging deeper into their answers, kind of leading them to think about, why are we curious? Who's put that there? Why are we unique? Is there value to life that's not based on, you know, your money or your status? Is there integral value to life? So we do those kind of big sessions based on big questions, and each speaker has a chance to bring in their own, you know, speciality in science, but really opening it up for the young people to lead the session. We then rotate around those kind of different sessions, and hopefully by the end of the day, we are bringing out big questions that they have about life, about science. You know, the study of the physical world, I think, often leads to big questions about the invisible world. So where we might talk about the Big Bang or what was at the beginning, often the question goes, well, what was there before? Was there anything before? When we talk about medical science, it naturally leads on to morals and ethics. And when talking about social justice, the question naturally leads on to, well, who is my neighbour? And so those are the kind of big questions that we as the scientists try to answer as best we can. But it's really, the day is a chance to kind of explore big questions that they don't usually get the chance to, because curriculum means they are, strapped into find deadlines, and it's space really for God to speak to them and for us to draw out big questions they have about life.
What sort of ages do you go and see in the schools?
So we work with ages 10 to 18. So that's anywhere, year 5 to 6th form.
Excellent. Yeah, it's quite a spread of ages and different approaches, I imagine, that are needed for that. But
Yeah, exactly.
am I right in remembering that originally it was just secondary, Michael?
Yeah, to start off, it was a secondary, and of course we've got some science faith communicators who are really good at primary and secondary, but it does take a kind of different communication skill set to do primary than secondary. But let me just I just come to mind one primary we went into where a youngster was just being told about the element, our bodies are made up from the elements, kind of from the universe, and come from dying stars, and when your teacher tells you that you're a star, your teacher is probably nearly right. And so the 10-year-old said to the science faith communicator, what? Wait, what? We're made from stars. And so communicator nodded, and the 10-year-old said, well, if we're made from stars, why are we still not shining? and it was, from the mouth of babes, just this idea, like we would never have even imagined that as a question, but what a deeply theological question it was. Gavin.
Brilliant. So we visit all these schools, we see thousands of pupils a year. What change does a God on the Big Bang Day make to those pupils?
Well, Abby, would you are you able to just share with us a slide which is maybe one of the reasons we continue going? We've been at it for 10 years. And so essentially kind of there is a reason we're at it for 10 years. We've done a piece of research.
We lost you for a moment, Michael.
Yeah, we've done a piece of research which basically kind of shows that if you go to a Church of England school and you reach the age of 10, and by the way, we do all sorts of schools, not just Church of England, but I'm just using Church of England as an idea here. If you go to a Church of England school, reach the age of 10, 43% of 10-year-olds say science makes it hard to believe in God. I mean, honestly, everybody, 43% say science makes it hard to believe in God at 10. If you continue on in Church of England education, Church of England education, at the age of 16, 56% say science makes it hard to believe in God. Everybody, can I just say, unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. This is the reason God and the Big Bang keeps going. Now, how could we, potentially change this? Well, what we found is if you get a scientist of the Christian faith in front of them, after one day, there is an 18% swing. Because I believe they've not met a scientist who believes it's possible to believe in science and faith. Our approach is not an information approach, it's an incarnational approach. You know, how can we get a young scientist as close to their age as possible, you know, to be able to actually just share what they've gone through in their science faith journey. So that's the stats we're working with, and that's the impact. But I don't think it's just that, Gavin. It's not just the impact on our young people in schools. I think it's the impact on finding the science undergraduates who are Christians, training them, which generally speaking, it isn't as rigorous as one might think it is. Sometimes it's throwing them in at the deep end. But anyway, finding, training, and then deploying them. And it's the impact on them. I believe we are creating great new generations of science faith communicators, which will stand the test of time, you know, kind of over the next years. I believe that we should not be ordaining anybody in this country unless they've been able to communicate the Christian faith to a 15-year-old, because 15-year-olds do not suffer fools gladly. You learn pretty quickly in those environments. And so this idea, it's a virtuous circle. It's great for the pupils, but it's great for the science undergraduates to be able to actually bring their science and their faith together, Gavin.
It's very interesting what you're saying about that incarnational approach, because at the moment, through new mediums, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, there is momentum for young atheist personalities. We're not talking the old new atheist horseman people. There's a new generation of personalities promoting atheism on these platforms. So to put someone in front of these kids who is a Christian and a scientist, that's very powerful to say there is another way of thinking about these things. So that getting into people's faces, I think, is really important.
Definitely.
We had a question, a couple of questions that just come in. How do you manage the different faiths that may be represented in a year group at school? So we're talking a lot about Church of England school as well.
Yeah,
be some variety we're going to.
Yeah, well, Gavin, you'll be going to a kind of a school in Oldham tomorrow. I think you should answer that question. The school tomorrow will be full of Muslim children, probably. No, I mean the thing is, we're very, very respectful of other faiths, and none, to be honest, and so, you know, we are able to actually kind of, you know, be really upfront with Christians. You know, we answer the questions that the children have got at the end, and we're able to actually kind of over the years not really have a problem with it. I think it's often in the minds of other people that there might be a problem, but actually when you go in and say, look, we're Christians, you know, if asked questions about our Christian faith, we will be answering them. Are you okay for us to come in? And we don't generally have a problem at all.
Do you build up a kind of a long-term relationship with a set of schools, or?
Yeah, I think that's why we've got to 100, because it's hard to kind of get into a school to start off with, but generally speaking, once they've experienced it, because, you know, for a school it's educational. You know, it's really educational, because we are talking about science and faith. We are talking about Genesis and evolution. We are talking about God and the Big Bang. We're bringing together, you know, subject areas, and so they book us again and again.
Brilliant. That's a sign. It's a sign of a quality product that they want you to come back again, and a good response from the kids. So just before we split out into our breakout groups, the final question that's come in is, what is the maximum age of a scientist you would want to go and be a speaker? Is there a maximum age? What are you looking for?
No maximum age. We're looking. I mean, we've got, to be perfectly honest, what we found over the years is communication is the key. The ability to be able to speak to the age group. Schools are very, very hard to win, easy to lose. And so, therefore, the ability to communicate is utterly kind of vital. So, it doesn't really matter what the age is. Clearly, what we are trying to do is to train up, the undergraduates, the master's degree students, the PhD candidates, the postdocs, to be able to put their science and faith together. But no, there's no age barrier.
Brilliant. But there's a few more questions as well, which if we got some time at the end, we'll come back to. I will share the contact details for God and the Big Bang by email afterwards, so you can all get in touch with Michael and Abby. Matt's just put the website in the chat as well, so you can have a look there as well. But for the next kind of about 10-12 minutes, we're just going to split into two groups where Rhoda will lead one group and I'll lead the other. And we just want to try and get a bit of feedback from you yourselves about the vision, about ideas around God and the Big Bang and how we might support that. But just we just want to hear from you to make sure that we are all on the same track here. I think we are. I'm excited about that as well, as I said earlier. But yeah, do we just want to create some space to hear from you? So if Matt will do the honors of splitting us up, we'll see you in the break rooms in a moment. Right, I think we are all back together. We just had at the end of our session, I was just making a point about who we speak to, and I was saying about, if we're talking about young people, don't forget the parents and the grandparents and the kind of influences, the teachers. Like with God and the Big Bang, it's as much an exciting day for the teachers as it is for the kids as well. So when we're talking about our message of science and faith compatibility, don't think that we only have one audience. We have all the audiences. That's why there's such a large amount of work for us to do. But thank you all for being with us tonight and for your contributions. Keep emailing to me your ideas and your enthusiasm. If you want to volunteer for any of those teams or groups, let me know. I'll do something a bit more organized with the prayer group. I think I'm really feeling that one. Now, Michael, I think, has a challenge for us before we go. So I'll hand over to Michael.
Yeah, I guess kind of one of the things I said before about trying to find a way to reconnect the beginnings of God and the Big Bang with the present moment for God and the Big Bang is for me a really important one. It did start with emeritus scientists. And Andrew Hailstrap just a few moments ago said, that God and Big Bang is, an opportunity to get some of the younger scientists that we've got involved within CIS. I think that if the younger scientists had been involved in CIS, we would have created God and the Big Bang. Because essentially, kind of, this is something, something that they can do, something that essentially shows how their faith and their science come together. And so it's a beautiful, kind of partnership. They are Christians in science. They're not members maybe at this moment in time, but they are Christians in science. And, Christians in science, I think, started 80 years ago with young scientists, who had a passion, for actually doing something in their generation. And therefore I want to kind of suggest that there is a role for CIS members to play right now, in helping new generations of Christians who are studying science in particular to actually find a way to bring their science and their faith together. And so the challenge I want to kind of put to you all is we would like to, in the next 12 months, try and find, train, and deploy 30 new science faith communicators that we haven't got right now. We'd like to go and find them. And, you know, we have a track record of being able to do this. But we need your help. You see, if we can find a new scientist, a new young scientist to do this, we can put them into 6 schools and they will see 900 pupils. That's, you know, on average, that's what happens. You know, if we can find one and train them, they can be the committee members of CIS of the future. You know, by actually finding them, training them, deploying them, giving them an opportunity to communicate this, it's not just into schools. It will make a difference, you know, for CIS, I think, in the future. And so my challenge is this: it's a vision, everybody. It's a vision, and CIS has had vision before, because I've heard plenty of it in the past 20 minutes. There's vision there. It's actually making it happen, and therefore vision needs a strategy, but it also needs finance. Now, I think we have a strategy of being able to find these 30 new ones. Now, can CIS members help with the finance side of it? See, if we could get 60 CIS members to consider, you know, giving £50 a month, we would be able to do this. We would be able to go and find those 30, train them, and deploy them. If we could get 30, just 30 who would give £100 a month, we'd be able to do it. But I, you know, want to try and find a way to bring what happened in the very beginning, which was vision, the vision of emeritus scientists, together with some strategy, and a decade later, having this vehicle now that we can actually really have this consistency of getting 30 a year coming through, and then connecting them with the work of CIS on a much wider basis as well. So that's my challenge. And I'm asking you all, please, would you consider, under God, you know, kind of partnering in this way? And I think, Gavin, you'll say to folks how that, you know, might happen.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that challenge, and I think we all should be, then please just drop me a line and I can put you in touch with Michael and Abby directly, and we can have more of a chat about it. But it's a good challenge. It's a good challenge. We were saying about £50 a month, which maybe, oh, that sounds a lot, but actually it's only a couple of quid a day. And for many of us here, I think that is achievable if we want to really get serious about the mission and vision of Christians in Science and God and the Big Bang. If we want to see those changes, those figures there, 53% drop into 38% after a God and the Big Bang visit, that's real and tangible in a tough environment in schools. And those kids then take that message back to their parents as well. They take it back to their grandparents. They take it out to their friends who haven't been there. It's real change that God and the Big Bang and Christians in Science want to perform together. So please go away and think about that challenge. If you just don't feel you can do that challenge yourself, think about other ways that you might want to fundraise for both of our organizations and get creative about it. The more creative you are about it as well, the more people will hear the message from Christians in Science and God and the Big Bang, and will take notice of what we're doing. And I'm very happy to talk about finances and fundraising with anyone as much as I am about all those other opportunities. But finance is ultimately an engine that we need to drive our machine forwards. So please, as Michael said, consider that under prayer as well. I'll just finish up, and then I might have some time for a few questions as well. So thank you to you all for being here tonight, and to Abby and Michael for your contributions as well. So I'll just finish with a couple of notices to say tonight has been really exciting, and I think in our breakout room we only just got started with all the conversations we could have. We do have the forum online where you can go and discuss many of these ideas, and I hope that many of you do that, as well as being in touch with myself. Don't be shy. Now is not the time to be shy. We're needed out there, and we need to change gear in CIS as well with what we're doing. As part of that, we're going to be launching publicity soon for the National Week of Prayer for Science and the Church, which this year will take place across British Science Week, which is on March the 8th to the 16th. During this week, you'll find a daily prayer on our YouTube channel, recorded by one of what we call the cake organizations. These are groups like CIS, Believe in Science, God and the Big Bang, groups engaged in talking about science and faith in churches, in schools, in policy. We've all recorded a video for this week, so please join us in prayer each day whenever you get a moment. And on March the 10th, that's 1 month from today, we're going to be hosting an online prayer meeting in the evening as well, as part of this week to pray for science, scientists, the church, and relationships between them all. So do join us for that. You can book into that at Ticket Tailor, where you booked in for tonight. We'll just close with a prayer, and if anyone does want to stay on just for a few minutes afterwards to ask a few more questions, I'm very happy to try and answer them as best as I can. So let's pray again. Creator God, we thank you for your gifts of science and of fellowship with each other. We thank you for the work of God and the Big Bang in schools across the UK. Help their work to continue to have real impact with the pupils and teachers who encounter it. Bless Abby, Michael, and all their speakers as they go into schools and proclaim not just that science and faith go together, but they are at their best through you. Help us all to consider what we might do next to support the work of Christians in Science, where we can help the most, where we can best use our passions, skills, and gifts to further the work of CIS, God and the Big Bang, and all others at work in our field. Ignite in us a fury to see change in how science is seen in the church. Help us to proclaim your name boldly wherever you have placed us. Amen. Thank you all for coming tonight. God bless.